everybody, welcome back to Theje's Notebook Review. I'm your host, Joel Michael, and what I have for you today is from HP. This is the 8470p EliteBook. It's not one of HP's latest offerings. No, in fact, this guy is 4 years old, but you can find it on the used notebook market for about $200 to $250. What we're going to find out in this video is if this notebook is still good enough for today's modern gamer. Let's dive right in. This, then, is the HP EliteBook 8470p. It has an Intel Ivy Bridge dual-core i7 3540M CPU that clocks up to 3.7 GHz with only 4 megs of L3 cache, the AMD Radeon 7570 GPU with 1 gig of GDDR5 VRAM, 4 gigs of DDR3 memory, and a 500 gig 7200 RPM hard drive, all underneath a 14-inch 720p LCD display. The battery of this used laptop lasts for a little over 2 hours of video and an hour of gaming, which is about average. The included AC adapter is a 65-watt unit that has an 8-foot total cord length, which is comfortably long. Let's see what all those holes in the side do. On the front, we get some nifty indication lights and the hood release, which has kept up very well. On the right, we have headphones and mic ports, an eSATA USB combo port, dual-link display port, the vent, and a lock slot. Up the rear, we get a phone port for fax modem support, VGA, and the gigabit LAN. Finally, the left affords us the DC-in, FireWire, 2 USB 3.0 ports for a total of 4 standard USBs, the DVD-RW drive, and an express card slot. This thing's pretty loaded, but too bad half of it is obsolete and there's no HDMI without an adapter. Poo beans. The bottom cover comes off easily with just a lock mechanism and no screws, same as the battery. Here we see the opportunity to at least double the memory with an empty RAM slot. There's only one fan, which explains the dual-core i7 and lower-end GPU config for this generation, and the wireless end card is Intel branded, making for excellent reception. The entire shell of the EliteBook is cast from aluminum, making this one of the strongest chassis I've handled, if not the strongest. It's possible that it is the strongest. There's very little body flex throughout, and you can't warp the screen by pressing from behind the monitor. The Dell Precision I reviewed is the closest rival in this regard, but the EliteBook wins by cheating. It's smaller. Being all aluminum, fingerprints won't show up anywhere, save for some light oil smudges, and the same goes for the keyboard. Unfortunately, the finish on the touchpad is still vulnerable to obvious smears. The keyboard on this HP is rather nice. These chiclet keys have a good amount of travel to them with a throaty tone that forbids it a stealthy presence. What will throw you for a loop is the shortened backspace and relatively large gap in the middle for the nub. It's nothing that muscle memory won't fix though, and getting used to it isn't much of a challenge. There's no backlight, which is expected from this generation, but there is an LED light next to the webcam, which doesn't do crap. The LED light from the Lenovo ThinkPad X220 is much better. At least the labels and finish on the keys isn't worn, and the function keys are function keys first, hotkeys second. The touchpad here is not a half-bad experience. There are 2 physical keys that don't have a click but an audible press tone much like the keyboard keys. The movement acceleration doesn't suit my fancy in both the small movement range, which is too slow, and the quick movement range, which moves the cursor too fast. Finding a comfortable in-between will always take some guesswork and lots of practice. Also, it turns off easily with a double tap to the top left corner. The pointy nub has held up well with the years and has its own set of keys on top of the touchpad. I always do prefer using a nub to a touchpad, and this one worked very well after I dialed down the sensitivity. What's great about these is that they make playing shooting games possible. Try playing Overwatch with one of these bad boys. I dare you. The EliteBook 8470p does have an available 1600 by 900 screen, but this one is the cheaper 720p option, and even though it's smaller than average, the larger pixels are painfully obvious. The viewing angles on this LCD are rather narrow, but the 180-degree tilt makes it stupid easy to find a comfortable viewing angle on your lap. The hinges are also very strong, making typing in any circumstance easy breezy. In other news, it has a contrast ratio and a certain color definition. Don't know what they are, don't care. It's only 720p and you're not going to be editing photos or videos on this thing. If you are, you're not a professional and you're doing it wrong. This HP notebook has speakers. There are 2 of them and they work. There's no overbearing software to make for muddy audio, but if it's bass, then you're not hearing it, even if it's the bass line from Rage Against the Machine's Calm Like a Bomb. The speakers won't fill a room, but they're good enough for YouTube or Netflix in a pinch. The system performance of this HP is not painfully slow thanks to the 7200 RPM hard drive. It's noticeably faster than 5400 RPM notebook drives, and it won't test your patience too much. Naturally, it's a slug compared to an SSD, but web browsing is quick enough and loading times for games isn't all that bad. The high-frequency i7 will still run your CPU-intensive apps like the little engine that could, but don't expect any miracles from its 4 megs of L3 cache. You're still only running at 66% efficiency compared to the Big Brother notebook i7s with 6 megs of cache. On to gaming. Let's be honest, the only reason to get one of these HP EliteBooks is they're cheap and have a dedicated GPU with GDDR5 VRAM. That being said, let's still do a reality check. This Radeon 7570 is 4 years old, and even when it came out, it was just under mainstream power. The fact that the display runs at 720p at the most is the saving grace, and the only reason why this is a viable gaming device. The only way you can play games is at the lowest of the low details and at 720p or lower resolutions. If your budget allows you to have as high as an NVIDIA 940M, then you'll have at least twice as much power as this. But hey, if games like Heroes of the Storm can run at 60 frames per second in low details, there is still relevance to be had here. In other news, the single fan spools up quite high, but not high enough to be competitive with the speakers, and the 7200 RPM hard drive heats up the bottom significantly, making it uncomfortable to use on your lap. And for the first time ever in a laptop with a dedicated GPU, gaming on battery power has no effect on performance whatsoever. Amen. For the bottom line, the HP EliteBook 8470p makes for a nice replacement in a pinch for whatever computer you lost in that house fire/flood, and if you feel like you don't get in another game of League of Legends like pronto, then you're gonna die. On a more serious note, getting an EliteBook with a dual-core i7 isn't something you should overlook if all you need is something light to do your homework or office work on, some web browsing on the side, and some light gaming. Bump the RAM up to 8 gigs, throw an SSD in it, get a 1600 by 900 screen, and hey, you've got something that will give modern laptops a run for their money, and you can use it for light gaming. Very light gaming. And if your luck isn't as good as mine and you get one with a crappy battery, it's replaceable, so yay! In conclusion, students get 2 thumbs up. The battery life is on the better side of average, the weight won't wear on your shoulder too fast, and all these new fancy games coming out won't tempt you at all because you can't play them. Success! And if the battery life is a deal breaker, then buy a second one. Problem solved. Casual gamers should still think it out before getting this. You really have to try hard to not care about what your games look like and play like. As far as what you can play, it's hit and miss. The newer the game, the more likely a miss. Pay close attention to the requirements. Competitive gamers can buy like 4 of these and chain them together in quad crossfire for about half of the performance you need. I wish. Desktop replacement seekers just might save money if you buy this and deck it out to the nines with replacement parts. I'll let you crunch those numbers yourself. Then again, it probably would be better just to play it safe and get something a little bit more contemporary. Home users can totally go for this. Get one for each one of your kids. Don't let them talk you into going to Costco and buying a $500 or more notebook for each of them. Get this or something like this. They're a great, cheap alternative to modern machines. Don't forget though that you'll have to work around the lack of an HDMI port. This has been a review of the HP EliteBook 8470p here on Theje's Notebook Review. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you know someone looking for a cheap laptop for themselves or someone they know, or someone they spawned or helped spawn, send them a link to this video. Maybe that way I'll even get a subscriber or 2. In any case, thanks for watching, and you guys have a good night.